right, today on Brower Brothers Podcast, we're going to be talking Jazz, of course. More specifically, we're going to be talking about the Bulls game, the Jazz's first loss, a little bit of the Milwaukee game, and then the Sacramento Kings game. Things that we're going to discuss in this episode. Want to make sure you stick tuned. Number one, Dylan and I have got to settle our bet that we paid on last show. Two, the first loss to the Bulls. We're going to be covering that in detail. That's going to be a big topic of our show today. And then the last thing, what's going on with Jordan Clarkson and his shooting slump. So discussing those things. Before we get into that, though, wanted to make sure that you guys remember about our 5 for the Fight event. So if you subscribe to our channel, click below if you don't, because we're going to donate $1 for every subscription between now and the end of the year to 5 for the Fight, which helps fund cancer research. Right now we're at $53 raised. So hopefully that number continues to go up. The other thing that we wanted to announce too that we're super excited about is we are now on Spotify. So you can find this podcast on Spotify, and shortly we will be on Apple Podcasts as well. So stay tuned for the show. Hopefully you guys enjoy. All right, Dylan. We're competitive. We're brothers. We hate losing to each other, but I just lost.
Yep.
So last show we had a bet going into the Bulls and Bucks game. I said, Dylan, would you take the over or under Donovan Mitchell averaging 30 points over the next 2 games? What'd you say?
I said under.
Took the under. And I think you said like 25 points, but that doesn't really matter because you just took the under. Right?
Yeah, but I was off by quite a bit.
I took the over, and looking at those 2 games against the Bulls, Donovan Mitchell scores 30. I'm thinking after that game, I'm like, I got this. Like, Donovan Mitchell just scored 30 points in a loss. He's totally going to get it against the Bucks, and I'm going to win. And then he goes against the Bucks, and he scores 28. So, just shy. Donovan averages 29. I miss it on the over. But then if you factor in the Sacramento game where he scored 36,
then he is a
different story, right?
He is over.
So if you factor in that one, then he's 31. So I did, though, technically lost the bet on the over-under. So we didn't talk about, though, like what you were going to get.
You bought me Chick-fil-A today, so we'll just count that as
Chick-fil-A. We'll call it good. Bunch of lunch.
We're even.
We're even. Okay. I did, though, want to talk about Donovan's numbers because obviously his scoring average went up a ton the last 3 games. A couple things I wanted to talk about, though. In the Bulls game, yes, his scoring average went up. Scored 30 points. He also had 6 assists and 7 rebounds, which is awesome. Like, that stat line looks really good. The things I didn't like, 9 for 27 from the field, 2 for 11 from 3. That's 18%. And he also had 6 turnovers that game.
Yeah. The stat sheet's kind of crazy on this one because we look at his stats sound pretty bad. 7 rebounds, 6 assists, pretty good. 6 turnovers, like you said.
Yeah.
You can't be 1 for 1 on that ratio of assist to turnovers.
Yeah.
That's bad. But he's still plus 13 in the plus minus.
Yeah, his plus minus was.
And they lose by 8.
Yeah.
So he goes plus 13. Bogdanovich is plus 11. O'Neal is plus 13.
Those are 3 of your 5 starters.
Whiteside is plus 7. Those are your only above, those are your only positives on the plus minus.
Mm-hmm.
This is what's shocking. Rudy Gobert, minus 15. Joe Ingles, minus 15. That one's not as shocking to me.
Yeah.
Eric Pascal, minus 19. Butler, minus 16. He gets 9 minutes. So he goes minus 16 in 9 minutes.
Yeah.
But overall, those bench guys, it's really not crazy for them. Their minus to be down a little bit for them to not be in the positive. They're coming off the bench. But for your 2 of your starters to go minus 15 and the rest are positive in double digits positive, with Donovan Mitchell has 35 minutes, Rudy Gobert has 32 minutes. It's just, that's interesting to me in that game that Donovan Mitchell obviously doesn't shoot well, but is still plus 13.
Yeah, so let's dive into this definitely a little bit more as far as, this is the first and only loss of the season to Chicago. We're at Chicago on the first night of a back-to-back. Conley doesn't play. Team decision, right? I think the Jazz have decided that on back-to-backs, they're only going to play him one game. It'll be interesting to see on this upcoming back-to-back where we go Miami, then Orlando. Do they play him against the better team in Miami? Or do they play him against Orlando and stick to him playing? Anyway, that's to be seen, right? We'll see on that. But yeah, talking about the loss, if you had to pick one thing that would be the reason for the loss, what would it be?
Am I allowed to use like excuses like we didn't have Mike Conley?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, when we've talked about this a lot, Mike Conley is there's three key pieces of the Jazz: Mike Conley, Donovan Mitchell, Rudy Gobert.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of those other guys fill in and do well. Jordan Clarkson, we obviously need bench scoring. There's a lot of guys that fit their role for what we need and do that very well. But if we're talking about the three just centerpieces of the Jazz, Donovan Mitchell, Mike Conley, and Rudy Gobert, when one of those guys are out, it's an entirely different team. Donovan Mitchell, again, scores 30 points. Definitely not the best shooting tonight. Rudy Gobert, you look at his stat, that's a good game.
Yeah.
17 points, 19 rebounds, 3 blocks, no turnovers.
Mm-hmm. So how is he a minus 15?
So that's what I'm saying is Mike Conley does these little things, and we've talked about this before, these little things that his basketball IQ is just the best in the Jazz by far. That makes the entire team better and stuff that you don't see. That I think, number one, just being a floor general, as well as the ball when he is on the court moves so much better and offensively are so much better because defensively they're so much better as well. I think defensively the Jazz looked pretty bad against the Bulls, who offensively are an okay team. Get DeRozan and Levine, who are good scorers, but they're not incredible by any means. But you watch that game and the Jazz just don't look the same when Mike Conley is out. There's not that the ball doesn't get up the floor quick enough on fast breaks. There's a lot of dribbling up the top on offense. The ball doesn't swing around like it should. Just very stagnant.
Yeah. So a couple things I want to bring up with that to elaborate a little bit more. If going back though a little bit, so your one thing would be Mike Conley didn't play. My one thing when I was watching this game was turnovers. Turnovers kill us. I think that has a relationship with your comment to Mike Conley because it does seem, when the Jazz don't have Mike Conley, it turns into a lot more one-on-one. There were multiple scenarios where Donovan Mitchell, in my mind, was just dribbling way too much. Way too much. I get he has 30 points, but I think most of his turnovers were off of his dribbling versus his passing. And I could be wrong on that. I'm trying to reflect back, to a week ago. But from what I remember and the notes that I made, Donovan Mitchell's turnovers came off of dribbling. Too much one-on-one, too much hero ball doesn't move, turnovers happen. And so, I agree with you. Mike Conley in the game, Mike Conley playing the game just totally changes the flow of our offense and our offensive sets.
We can't start Joe Ingles.
Yeah.
In no game should Joe Ingles be playing 32 minutes.
Who would you start instead of Joe if Conley's not playing?
I would put Pascal over Joe Ingles.
So you move Bogey to the 3, Royce to the 2, Donovan 1?
Yeah. Even Pascal can play the 3 too.
Yeah, that's true.
So, but you're right. I would probably throw Bogdanovic at the 3 on offense, but defensively, depending on the matchup, you might go Pascal at the 3 and Bogdanovic at the 4 because I think Pascal is much quicker on his feet than Bogdanovic.
True.
But moving on from that, you look at Joe Ingles, and again, he goes 3 for 8 from 3, which looks good.
Mm-hmm.
9 points, not bad. A couple assists, 6 rebounds, 4 turnovers.
Yeah.
And is minus 15, the plus minus. He plays his role well, like we've talked about.
Yeah.
But to have him go up and beyond of being a starter and playing that many minutes, the Jazz can't rely on Joe Ingles be playing that many minutes and expect to win the basketball game.
Why does Joe do so bad in the starting lineup? Why is it you see a different Joe Ingles starting versus coming off the bench?
Because he's playing against starters, I think.
You think that's 100% it? It just has to do
It's
with
not
who's-
100% it, but I mean, when he's in the starting lineup in this game, he's matching up against guys like DeMar DeRozan, Zach LaVine. He's way too slow
Yeah.
to be playing against the guys like that who are so good creating their shots offensively. He's not good enough defensively. I mean, I think his IQ defensively is great. I think he's lazy now, though, which we didn't see. A couple of years ago, Joe Ingles, I would never say was lazy.
Mm-hmm.
But the past few years, Joe Ingles is lazy now on defense
Yeah.
and is so slow, which is expected. That I can understand.
Yeah.
I think he's 34 now,
Yeah. He's
something
getting
like
up
that.
there.
He's
Getting up
old,
there.
but his effort's pretty bad. And with a guy that old, that slow, 32 minutes in a game trying to guard guys like DeMar DeRozan and Zach LaVine, that's just not going to work out.
Yeah. So speaking of those two go off. They actually absolutely dominate. LaVine finishes with 26 points and DeRozan finishes with 32. I felt like DeRozan destroyed us on the mid-range, no matter who was guarding him, and Pascal had him for a big majority of that time. But Pascal, I felt, was playing great D, yet DeRozan was just hitting shot after shot in the mid-range right over top of him. And then LaVine got to the hoop whenever he wanted, because between the two of them, they went 1 for 5 from the three. So it's not even like they were shooting the three. It was all mid-range and all at the rim.
You want to hear my hot take of the day?
Hot take alert. Don't get salty.
Okay.
Zach LaVine is overrated.
Okay.
How dare you!
Explain.
I think he is very athletic, and so he comes across as this great player because he's so athletic. And some of the plays he has are just amazing to watch.
Mm-hmm.
Not consistent enough offensively. He is sometimes reckless. This game he did well. No turnovers this game. I think he's sometimes reckless with the ball as well as inefficient on offense at times. I think he's overrated. DeMar DeRozan, I think he's dang good.
Yeah.
I think he's underrated as a player, but I think Zach LaVine's a little bit overrated.
And we'll talk about this a little bit more as we get closer to All-Star break and, a few months down the road, whether or not, who makes the All-Star team and stuff like that. We'll talk about that. So we'll push that off for now, right? Like we'll push that off. One thing that I'm looking at is I'm looking through these numbers and stuff. So I'm going to preface what I'm about to say with this question. How much weight can you put on the plus minus? Okay, so hold your thoughts. That's my preface. How much weight can you put on the plus minus? Because I'm looking at the Bulls plus minus. They win the game. Zach LaVine, who I thought had an amazing game, like probably one of the best games I've ever seen him play, has a minus 10.
That's what I'm saying.
And DeMar DeRozan has a plus 15, which is good. But here's the shocker, right? We talked about Rudy Gobert. Rudy Gobert finishes that game with a minus 15. Tony Bradley, who used to be here, right? Used to play for Utah. Tony Bradley, that game is a plus 19.
So
And doesn't do jack.
factoring into the plus minus, you have to look at minutes as well.
Yeah.
So Tony Bradley, 14 minutes goes plus 19.
Mm-hmm.
With 14 minutes, you can say, okay, well, the Bulls might have went on this huge run during that time. He might have had nothing to do with it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But when you look at like Zach LaVine and DeMar DeRozan, so Zach LaVine has 34 minutes, DeRozan has 35. That's where like obviously they have a big enough sample of minutes there where the plus minus really is impactful of how they played because they played majority of the game.
How many minutes does a guy have to play for you to feel like the plus minus is a good scale?
Well, it depends on the
determine if it was a
team.
good game or not.
For the Bulls, they're like probably 8 deep where they play heavily 8 guys, 7-8 guys, because their bench just isn't as good.
Yeah.
So, at that point, you're probably, 25 minutes or over. Their plus minus really factors into how the game plays out. I mean, if you're playing over half the game, I think that plays a big role in your, that really factors into your plus minus. But you look like Jared Butler plays 9 minutes. He's a minus 16. That's bad. Minus 16.
Mm-hmm.
But again, 9 minutes.
Jared Butler and Tony Bradley were on the floor at the same time, and that's why Tony had the plus
So
15.
like it's hard to be able to say like, oh, in 9 minutes, like you're the reason the Jazz lost. No, he played 9 minutes.
Yeah.
Could have nothing to do with him. But if you're on the floor for over 30 minutes, especially, like you're playing a majority of the game, the outcome of the game is very dependent on how you play.
Yeah.
So looking at guys like DeMar DeRozan and Zach LaVine, again, plus 15 compared to minus 10, I think Zach LaVine looks good on paper and has these fantastic plays and stuff like that. But I think if you take a step back and look at the overall picture of winning and losing and who helps your team win, I think he's overrated.
Oh, okay. So
same thing with Bogdanovich.
Yeah. Last thing I'll say about this game, again, the turnover ratio. 20 turnovers for the Jazz. The Bulls only have 9. You're just not going to win games if you turn the ball over that much. And what caused those turnovers, reasons why, right? There's all sorts of stuff we could dive into on that. But in my opinion, it's Mike Conley. That's what changes it all, right? So moving on then, next night we play at Milwaukee. And looking at these numbers, Mike Conley plays, he gets 30 minutes. So, I mean, that's more minutes than I was hoping he would average. I was hoping he'd be around the 25-minute mark. But he was well rested. We play him on the second half of the back-to-back. He ends up going for 20 points. The thing I loved about that game, he was 4 for 7 from the 3. However, he was still a -3. That being said, not very many of the Jazz players were high in the plus-minus. It was a close game throughout, so you're not going to have crazy plus-minus numbers. But his 20 points, 20 points, 6 of 11 from the field, 54%, 4 for 7 from the 3, 57%. I think Mike Conley's leadership plays such a valuable role for the Jazz. He has just such a calming presence. His game is so smooth. He plays, his pace is always his own. He's never sped up by the defense. I think he just, early on, I feel, though, that I've had enough chance to watch him play and the effect he has on the team. I think Mike Conley is the Jazz's MVP.
Yeah. Again, I have a hard time saying
I know he doesn't
person.
put up the numbers that Gobert and Mitchell does, but I think him not playing hurts us more than either of the other two.
Yeah. It's so hard to say because we lose Mitchell and I still think we lose. We lose Gobert and I think we lose.
Yeah, we're definitely hurt.
Yeah,
we're definitely hurting.
Well, even not just hurt, like I think we lose that game. We lose any of those 3 guys.
Yeah.
And I think we lose the game. And so it's hard to say like one is more valuable than the other. And this is another hot take. Donovan Mitchell is probably the least valuable in my opinion of the 3.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people are going to hate me for saying that because everybody loves Donovan Mitchell. I love Donovan Mitchell. I think the Jazz are nowhere near the team they are without him. But I think what Mike Conley and Rudy Gobert give to you as a team is much greater than what Donovan Mitchell can do. With that being said, I think like I said, without Donovan Mitchell, the Jazz are nowhere the team they are right now.
I think it's really interesting, too, looking and comparing the Bulls game to the Bucks game. The Bulls game, Donovan Mitchell goes 9 for 27, 33% from the field, 2 for 11 from 3, 18%. So, respectively, 33% from the field, 18% from the 3. Versus Milwaukee, he's 55% from the field, 44% from 3. Is that just all of a sudden he goes from having a bad game, bad shooting night to a good shooting night? Or, and this is my opinion, Mike Conley being on the floor gives him better looks.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Well, Donovan Mitchell can't be your primary ball handler. You can't expect him to be the one that just has the ball in his hands all the time. I think that's what happens. Like you said, there's way too much dribbling, and that's what happens when the Jazz play the Bulls without Mike Conley is Donovan Mitchell's just caught dribbling way too much trying to create because there's no other creators on the floor. Bogdanovich is not going to create a shot. Royce O'Neal's not going to create a shot.
Bogdanovich will try and create a shot for himself.
Okay, yeah. But it's still not going to be successful.
Not for anybody else.
And Rudy Gobert sure as heck is not going to create a shot. Yeah. So when you take Mike Conley away as well and you throw in a guy like Joe Ingles who is not going to create a shot, you have one shot creator.
Yeah.
One playmaker in Donovan Mitchell, and you expect him to come up, bring the ball up the floor with a guy guarding him. Like that is just way too much to put on one player and expect him to be efficient.
Yeah,
all game.
I can agree with that. So we pick up the win in Milwaukee. A couple key notes on that, though, if you didn't watch the game. Lopez is out with a back injury. Middleton is a late game time decision scratch with sickness, non-COVID related, and Drew Holiday doesn't play either due to injury. So you're missing 3 of the 5 Bucks starters, right? Grayson Allen comes in and has a great game. There's some things, that some of the Milwaukee bench players did that was good, but I still look at that game and I think there's no way we win that game if Milwaukee's healthy.
Yeah, Grayson Allen, great game. I think George Hill is pretty underrated as a player, even now, and he's old too.
Mm-hmm.
I think he's just solid. Giannis, and I've said this before, it's just hard to look at the Bucks as this dominant, just powerhouse team every year because Giannis is still just inconsistent from the 3-point line.
Yeah, I can get behind you on that. Jumping forward then to the Sacramento game. Played Sacramento. This is the second time we played them. First time was in Sacramento and we won. This time we're at home and we get the win as well. I have been surprised that when you hear the name Sacramento, I thought both games were going to be a blowout. Both games were really close contests. I mean, we end up this time, Jazz win 119-113. I love this game, though. You look at our top 3, our big 3, Utah's big 3, right? Conley gets 30. Gobert only has 12 points, but he has 20 rebounds, and Mitchell has 36. Another solid shooting night for Mitchell. He's pushing 50%. Mike Conley's at 58% shooting. He goes 6 for 9 from the 3-point line against Sacramento.
Yeah. I think big takeaway on why it was so close is turnovers again.
Yeah, 16. The Jazz, what's the number the Jazz need to be shooting for in a turnover game?
12 or less.
Yeah, I agree. They were at 12 against Milwaukee. But yeah, I think we've got to keep that. I mean, obviously, if you can keep that number in single digits, great.
Yeah.
But I think it is a very reasonable and a number you can expect to keep under 12.
If you can keep it around 10, if you are keeping it so low, around under 5, at that point, you're asking yourself, man, are we being aggressive enough? Are we being hesitant to attack? Because you're going to have turnovers. Mistakes are going to be made. But, yeah, to go over 15 especially, I think it's hard to win a game over 15 turnovers.
Well, and I think if you go over 15, you better hope or you better be pressing the other team enough that you win the turnover battle still. But in these games, we're not.
No.
I mean, the Jazz are losing the turnover battle.
Well, and that's where the Jazz are a much better team than Sacramento. And like you said, Sacramento is not bad anymore. They used to be horrible.
I could see them being in the play-in game this year.
Yeah. And so, we can't say like, oh, the Jazz should have just absolutely just destroyed the Kings. But the Jazz are a much better team. But like I said, turnover battle, we're 16-11 on that. We lose the turnover battle, and I think for that reason it's a close game.
Yeah.
And that's not because anyone played particularly bad that we needed to step up. Like you said, Donovan Mitchell, 36. Mike Conley, 30. Rudy has 12 and 20. Our main guys did what they needed to.
Bogey ended up with 20 as well.
Yeah.
So you have those 4 guys, right? Bogey 20, Conley 30, Gobert 12, Mitchell 36. No other guy on the Jazz. Whiteside ended up with 9 points, but he's the next highest, 9 points. All the other guys are 3 and 2 points. Like, there was no bench. Donovan Mitchell, Conley, and Gobert, our big 3 won that game.
Yeah. And we talk about Jordan Clarkson a little bit.
We'll get in that.
Yeah, we mentioned that a little bit. Obviously, we need him to step up. Hassan Whiteside, not a bad game. But, your other guys, Pascal has 2 points. Joe Ingles plays 26 minutes and has 3 points.
But only shoots it 4 times.
Yeah, and
all 4 threes and hits 1.
And again, on a stat sheet, you're like, oh, that's not bad. 25%, you shoot 4 shots, you hit a 3. But 26 minutes to shoot 4 shots, make 1 3.
Quinn wants him shooting way more than that.
Yeah, shooting way more than that. And like, if you're gonna be playing 26 minutes, you better be doing something on the floor to show that you play.
Well, and it would be different if the points are low yet the assists are higher. I mean, he had 4 and then he had 2 rebounds. To me, this just shows this game that Joe was not engaged.
Well, and he doesn't have a turnover, which again looks good, but at that point too, where you're like, man, like, were you
there.
aggressive enough? Or
He was just there.
Yeah.
He was at the game because that was where he was supposed to be.
Yeah. So
he wasn't anxiously engaged in a good cause, Dylan.
that's the truth. Mike Conley, 4 turnovers with 2 assists. That's bad.
Yeah.
Donovan Mitchell, 3 turnovers, 6 assists. That's not bad if you're a 2-1.
There weren't very many assists this game, though.
No.
I mean, the Jazz only had 16.
Yeah.
16 assists total.
And what's amazing is Donovan Mitchell has 6 of those 16.
Yeah.
By far averaging more than anybody else. By far getting more than anybody else that game. But I don't know. It's just hard to get a take on the Jazz right now because of the inconsistency from game to game on who's doing what.
It's a different team showing up every night, which I think you want to have different guys performing well on a given night to win games. You don't want it all on one guy. However, it's that some games guys are showing up and others it just seems like there's nothing. So
yeah.
Go ahead.
Well, I just moving on to our take on Jordan Clarkson, what's going on there. I can handle bad shooting nights like Jordan Clarkson's been having these past couple of games.
For those who haven't been watching, to clarify, the last 2 games against Milwaukee and Sacramento from the 3-point line. Let's see here. I'm just double checking my numbers to make sure I'm right here. Yeah, Jordan Clarkson is 0 for 18 the last 2 games from behind the arc.
And 0 for 11 against Sacramento.
Yeah.
So 0 for 11 against Sacramento, goes 1 for 13 from the field, has a little layup kind of push shot there in that game.
A little floater.
0 for 2 from the free throw line. He's a good free throw shooter.
Yeah.
But here's why I don't mind too much on that. Guys are going to have bad shooting nights. Guys like Jordan Clarkson just need to keep putting shots up to get out of those. Donovan Mitchell goes through the same thing, I swear, 8 times a year.
Yeah. Yeah.
So Jordan Clarkson just needs to keep shooting. Not a big deal. They might lose a couple games because of this, but obviously we need him. But here's what's good. 3 rebounds for him, not bad. 1 assist for him, okay. 2 steals and a block. And so he's still on the court, though, making plays.
Yeah, he's doing what he can.
And his plus minus, he's a -4. Played 23 minutes. Again, bench. Every guy on the bench is a minus. And he's tied with Whiteside for a -4. And Whiteside looks like he has this great game. And it's just hard to really point out and say, oh man, Jordan Clarkson's been playing horrible. When you look at him and say, wow, like when he's on the floor, he's still doing better than when Joe Ingles was on the floor.
Yeah. And I agree that shooters got to shoot and you want him to shoot his way out of this slump. I felt against Sacramento, a lot of the shots were forced and a lot of the shots were rushed.
Yeah.
I want him taking most of those shots, I think there were probably only 2 or 3 of them that I was like, was that really a good shot? But that's not a big deal, right? 2 or 3 shots that are questionable. But the biggest thing was even the wide open ones, he didn't look like himself. He didn't look like the flamethrower, right? I mean, he looked like he was up in his head. So as a shooter, we hear all the time that you want to shoot yourself out of a slump, but mentally, what can he do to get ready for the upcoming game against the Hawks?
Like you said, not forcing anything. I think, I think he has had this in the past a lot as well. Moving back from before Utah when he was playing for Cleveland, LA, teams like that, he didn't look comfortable, which I think is what you're kind of saying right here with forced shots. He doesn't look comfortable. I think he needs to just let the game come to him a little bit more. I think I'm not worried about it. I'm sure it will. I think this next game he shoots the ball fine.
If it was other players, like if it was Bogdanovich or Joe Ingles, maybe even Donovan. You know, if we're talking some other players like that, I might have a little bit more question. But I'll tell you what, Jordan Clarkson, whether he's scoring or hitting or not, that guy's got so much swag that I don't question his mindset one bit.
Yeah.
Like that guy is a swag
confident.
machine. So I think he's still going to put up plenty of shots. He's not going to hesitate. I hope he goes off against the Hawks. And so here's my chance to redeem myself. Dylan, one game against the Hawks, you set the over-under points, and then I'll tell you what I pick for Jordan Clarkson against the Hawks.
25 points, Jordan Clarkson.
I'm going under.
You're going under?
But I do think he breaks 20.
Okay. Yeah, I'll take the over on that.
Okay. I'm writing this one down. 25 for Clarkson against the Hawks. Okay, so we'll see that. We'll catch that up on the next show here. Last thing. Little plug here. Pat myself on the back. I said Davion Mitchell to win Rookie of the Year. He's looked pretty good against the Jazz so far this last game. He had 18 points, 2 assists, 4 rebounds. He had a block as well and played 30 minutes.
I mean, almost averaging 10 points a game, 3.5 assists. Percentage-wise, not shooting super great, but very start of the season to be putting up almost double digits coming off the bench. Yeah, that's pretty good.
So, well, yeah, last thing here, looking at the upcoming schedule then. Like I said, we've got the Hawks on Thursday night, and then we go, where do we go here? Here we go. Hawks Thursday night. We're at Miami Saturday, at Orlando Sunday. I think it's not a question. There's no doubt in my mind that the Jazz rest Conley on one of those games. Which game do you think Conley plays?
I think you throw him with playing against a better team.
I hope so. I
Yeah.
hope they do that. I hope they play him against Miami. The Jazz, you know, this first time in the season that they have a back-to-back, they play him on the back end of the back-to-back. I hope that they play him against Miami and rest him against Orlando. Miami's just a much better team sitting atop the East right now.
Yeah, and we talked about this too before. Miami hasn't played anybody great yet. East is just a mess right now. The Bucks, not a great record, but they've also played like the Jazz and
some good
their
teams.
schedules. Yeah, their schedule's been a little bit tougher as well as the Bulls. Their schedule's been a little bit tougher, so it's hard to say like, oh man, the Heat are going to be great this year. I think we got to wait, 10 more games to see kind of to let the East kind of level out a little bit into what it's going to be later on in the year.
Yeah. Thanks you guys for watching. Appreciate it. Leave your comment below. Let us know if you think Mike Conley is going to play against Miami or Orlando, maybe why you think that and what you're hoping for, as well as if you guys want to get in on the over-under action as well. Like we talked about, Jordan Clarkson against Atlanta. You know what? It just dawned on me. We're filming this. The game against Atlanta is tonight, and this show isn't released till tomorrow. So let's go, Jordan. Let's change this up real quick. Jordan Clarkson's average over the next 3 games. So Hawks,
20 points.
Heat, 20 points.
Yeah, over under 20.
I'll take the over on that.
I'll take the under on that.
Okay. So 20 points
I
over the
think
next 3.
He goes for 28 tonight, but he goes for 18 on the average for the next 3.
Okay.
I'm going to speak it into existence.
Okay. Well, we'll see how that goes. Everybody who watches this will have a leg up because you'll get to already see the Atlanta game before you pick your over-under. But yeah, over-under. Jordan Clarkson, next 3 games at Atlanta, at Miami, at Orlando, 20 points. I've got the over. Dylan's got the under. What a pessimist. Always taking the under.
Yep.
Thanks, guys.